Hi, everyone, and welcome to Module 7, where we're going to be talking about movement as a regulation technique. Now, in the last session, we talked about the soothing power of self-touch, and we talked about different practices like hugging yourself, cupping your eyes, and other ways to kind of signal safety to our nervous system. And today we are going to move into movement. And so stress is not only mental or emotional, it's actually physical. And if we want to relieve or release emotion from our body, we have to do that through movement. And the only way to get it out is to move, to shake, and to release that emotion. And this is why yoga is so important in the spiritual community, not only because it links your breath with your mind and your intention, but also the movement aspect. And the movement is what allows our body to release the things that we need to release, whether it's stress, whether it's emotions, whether it's toxins. The combination of the mind-body coherence with the nervous system regulation and the movement is what is going to help you in that process. And so when our nervous system perceives threat, our body immediately prepares for action. Our muscles tighten, our heart rate increases, and our energy goes through the roof. And if that energy has nowhere to go, then it is going to linger in our body and create dysregulation for our nervous system. And movement is the most direct way to release that stored energy and to restore balance. And what we want to do here is we want to incorporate any of these movement techniques with the intention and the the deactivation of our nervous system to let go and to release. And so in this module, we're going to talk about why movement is so effective. We're going to try out a couple of approaches, and we're going to hear a story about a leader who used movement as their main regulation tool. And so why does movement matter? We talked a little bit about this, but it is what completes our stress cycle. So when we activate, when our energy rises, when our emotions get kind of jumbled, we have to release that energetic exchange. And if we don't, we stay stuck and we can't move on to the next part. And so imagine an antelope escaping a lion. And so after the chase, it has to shake vigorously before returning to their grazing. And this shaking is what actually releases all of that survival energy. And so the antelope's fear response kicks in. It activates its our breathing. It activates its nervous system, and it sends all of the energy into the body to activate our run response. Right, and as that happens, we get a lot of it out when we're running, but it still lingers in there, and so we have to find ways to consciously release it from our body. Animals instinctively do this. But for us as human beings, we think, we're out of that stressful moment. It's not bothering us anymore. And then we take it home and we get irritable and we do all these things, right? So we have to intentionally release that energy. And when we are kind of attempting to override this response and we don't finish a stressful meeting with some sort of release, then that energy stays active in us and it impacts our interpersonal dynamics in other ways, whether it's through irritability, whether it's through tone, whether it's through whatever it is, it will impact us. So we have to find ways to release all of that stored energy in our body before moving on to the next thing. Because if we don't, it will lead to tension in our body, fatigue, and in many, many cases, emotional volatility. And so movement is what is going to help us regulate this. And as part of this, we're going to release that buildup of adrenaline and cortisol, right? So our nervous system activates, all of that adrenaline, all of that cortisol is kind of being pumped into our body to facilitate our fight, flight, or freeze response. And then what we have to do is we have to intentionally release that. We have to restore our blood circulation and our breath in that moment and afterwards. And we have to intentionally signal to our body through rhythm, through repetition, and through motion that we don't need that energy anymore because we are not in danger, and that we can let it go. And then we have to bring our intention back into our body instead of keeping it looping in our mind or churning in our body. So let's talk about some movement practices. So there are many, many ways that we can use movement to actually regulate. We'll talk about walking, we'll talk about yoga and Qigong, dancing, and shaking practices in this module. Now, again, many ways that you can do this. If you want to explore more ways, feel free to do any kind of YouTube search or Google search on movement for restoring balance to your nervous system, and you'll find all kinds of ways. So first, walking. This is the simplest and most accessible form, right? Most people have the ability to walk. And of course, if you are in that circumstance where you do not have that ability, you can find other forms of movement to release. But if you can walk, then you have an accessible form to release stored energy in your body. Even just a few minutes of walking a day can help to reset your nervous system. And what we want you to do with walking is to try and focus on the rhythm of your steps. And so the actual movement is important. And again, like we talked about earlier, the rhythm of syncing your breath and your mind together with the intention to release that stored energy is important. So as much as you can, go for a quick walk to release stress, especially before you have to be present and to be available for others. Now, yoga and Qigong, we've talked about yoga a little bit. I'm a big yoga person, and so I love yoga very, very much. Qigong is just an energetic form of movement, so it's kind of more flowy. It's tied to your breath as well, and it's a really gentle movement that is intentional and that is combined with your breath and with your awareness. And these practices specifically help you balance the energy in your body and release tension so that you can be grounded and centered and present in the moment. And regardless of which one you choose, they're both really, really great practices, but the movement tied with the breath and the awareness is what's really, really important for this one. And so whether you choose yoga or whether you choose Qigong, it doesn't matter. Focus on your attention, focus on your breath, and focus on the movement to release and restore. Dancing, again, I've shared a little bit about this one. This is more free form. Really, however you want to express yourself in this regard is totally up to you. If you want to jam out to your favorite session or if you just want to dance and sing to yourself, we want you to just let go of everything else, dive into the dancing, and again, if you want, I bring intention to my dance. And when I dance by myself, I bring intention and I intentionally tell my body, I'm releasing stress. I'm trying to do all the things that I want or need to do with my dancing. But for me, it is a very intentional process. It doesn't have to be intentional for you. If you just dance and you get out there, then you're still going to be releasing that stored energy. So just make sure that you do it for at least a few minutes. So I would say 5 to 10 minutes a minimum for the dancing. And of course, if you can do it longer, do it longer. And this is going to help to increase your mood and to shift your energy. And so if you don't have a dance routine in your normal daily practices, I would say definitely make sure that you add one of those in there. And this one is probably my personal favorite, shaking. If you've ever done any traditional yoga or Qigong, you know how important shaking is. But this is, again, it comes from animals and traditional cultures. And so our indigenous cultures and animals know how to release stress through shaking, and they are very intentional about it. But for us, all we want you to do is we want you to stand and shake your legs, shake your arms. You can do it like I'm doing here, or you can be much more intentional and like forceful, like shaking it and like you're throwing it down into the ground here. And so however you want to do it, it's up to you. There are also some traditional yoga practices where you're swinging. It's a kind of a form of shaking, but more flowy and more nuanced. I can't fully do it here because of my setup right now, but if you're interested in that, you can Google traditional yoga swinging, and it will walk you through how to do those exercises. Now, these are especially helpful when we are feeling really restless or jittery. And for me, I carry a lot of stress in my shoulders. So I frequently, when I worked in an office, I had to constantly shake my shoulders all the time to try and release and to let go of some of that. And so if you're like me and you want to do that, find a nice quiet place in the corner where you can just go and you can release. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the leadership connection to this. And for leaders, obviously, movement is more than an exercise. It is a regulation tool that is going to be hopefully interwoven into your daily routines so that you can intentionally release stress as it is building up throughout your day. And this can be super, super simple. It can be adding a 5-minute walk between your meetings, standing and stretching before a presentation, or even just shaking out the tension in your office or in a private space so that you can help prevent buildup of stress. Now, it also helps to kind of create permission for others to integrate these aspects into their practices as well. And when leaders can normalize movement breaks, whether it's stretching during a workshop or something along those lines, then they can create a culture that helps to regulate the collective by signaling to the group that regulation and embodiment are valued, and that releasing stress is important and beneficial to the team dynamic. Now, of course, if you can find ways to integrate this into your leadership, it's going to help you to build more resilient teams, to help everyone be a little bit more present and a little more engaged. And it will also help generally, I think, with people's personal lives, because how often do we have examples of actually releasing and letting go of things that are happening to us in our lives? So with that, I'm going to share a little bit about a story of an executive in a fast-paced company. And this person found themselves kind of shutting down in high-pressure situations. And during board meetings, they would describe feeling frozen or unable to find their words. And they tried breathing, but it only seemed to make things a little bit worse for them. And when we kind of explored this further, they realized that as a child, movement was a natural way to cope. And he loved sports and running and dancing, and all of these activities kind of gave their body an outlet. And in his professional life, he had internalized the idea that stillness equaled composure. And what we did was we experimented with different forms of movement and how that could be integrated into their routines to help them as they prepared for their board meetings. And so what eventually this person landed on was walking before those meetings. And so 10 minutes of brisk walking paired with a steady breath that helps to completely shift their state of mind. So remember that freeze is a automatic nervous system response where your body is triggered and it moves into that state. And so the only way around that is to communicate to your nervous system that it's safe and that the environment does not call for activating the nervous system. So what this person was able to do was to go for that brisk walk before their meeting, and that helped them to feel more relaxed and more clear in their thoughts and in their actions. And over time, they were also able to incorporate, can't remember what this one is called, but like touch between the fingers, shaking practices before some of their conversations, and other things. And for me, this is also one of the foundational things for me. I used to work in the sexual violence arena, so constantly carrying so much heavy emotion around everyone else's trauma, and I physically had to release that energy constantly. And so for me, this is a really, really important practice and process. Now, let's say, I think we'll do a practical exercise now, and we'll try a sequence that you can do anywhere. And so for this, we're going to do a shake, we'll do a stretch, and we'll do a twist and maybe a mindful step. So what I want you to do here is I want you to stand, or if you're sitting right now, imagine standing, and I want you to shake your arms, maybe for about 30 seconds. I want you to let your shoulders loosen. Then I want you to shake your legs. Again for maybe 30 seconds. Loosening your legs as much as you can as you shake. And I want you to notice the sensations of the energy moving throughout your body. Whew, that one got me lightheaded. The next thing I want us to do is I want us to do just a simple stretch. And so I want you to raise your arms over your heads. I'm kind of tucked in, so it's difficult for me right now. As you inhale, and as you exhale, lower them slowly. So inhale, exhale. We're going to do this one a few times. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. If you need to close out with a little final shake, feel free to do that. I can feel the release in my shoulders with this one. I forget how calming and soothing that one is for me. And take a moment just to check in with your body. What do you feel? What are you experiencing? And the next one we're going to do is a twist. And you can be standing or you can be seated for this one. Put your arms, your hands on your shoulders, like this. And just slowly twist side to side, moving with your breath. We're going to do this for a few breaths, so. Now, for me, I tend to prefer slow movements and slow breath because that's what helps my stress in my shoulders and in my body. Now, if you want to have a quicker pace to this, that's fine. So, hands on your shoulders with the breath, though. Very simple, very easy. Breath tied to the movement, breath tied to the movement. And the release. This one is really helpful if you're like me and you carry a lot of stress in your back and in your shoulders because it helps to loosen the spine a little bit and to give a little bit of movement there. And we'll do one more exercise for this module. What I want you to do is standing in place or in your chair, I want you to simulate taking steps or actually take steps in place. And I want you to feel the contact of your feet. I'm barefoot right now, so I feel every part of my foot as it touches the ground. And I feel it kind of flowing with my steps. And what you want to do here is you want to try to match each step with a breath. And I'm going to try and do this while talking, so bear with me. But step, inhale, step, exhale, step, inhale, step, exhale, step, inhale, step, exhale. If you want a slower pace, slow your steps. If you want a quicker pace, have a quicker steps, right? And we're going to do that for a minute. So inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. I typically like to add a little bit more movement to something like this. Hands over your shoulders is a good one. And so as I lift my foot and lower it, I'm raising my arms and lowering it. You don't have to do that. Again, simplicity and repetition here is the key. And when you finish, I want you to just again pause and notice. How does your body feel now compared to before you started the movement? And as you reflect on that, we want you to also reflect on how do you usually respond physically when you're stressed? Do you tend to freeze? Do you tend to pace? Do you tend to fidget or collapse into stillness? Do you run away? How do you physically respond to stress? And which of these movement practices felt natural to you? Which ones didn't? And in what ways could you incorporate movement into your leadership routines? And finally, how can you model movement in ways that invite your team to also value embodiment? And how can you make that a part of the culture? Now, as we close out here, movement is one of the most powerful ways to regulate because it meets your body where it is and it helps to release all of that energy, all of that tension, all of that restlessness. And by walking, stretching, dancing, shaking, whatever you choose, we are giving our body a physical conduit to release and to create space for clarity. And as you experiment with some of these practices, I want you to try adding short movement breaks into your day. It doesn't have to be going out and walking. It can be anything from shaking to stretching to walking around. Whatever you choose to do, I want you to try to add short breaks into your day and to notice how even just a couple of moments can change your energetic state and your physical presence. So as we close out, we're going to talk really, really quickly about what we're going to explore in the next module, which is grounding practices. And in module 8, we are going to learn how to connect with the earth, how to engage our senses, and how to use very simple techniques like body scans, tension and release exercises, and those kinds of things to anchor you in the present moment and to help you restore balance when you're feeling overwhelmed. And so I hope to see you in module 8 where we talk about grounding practices. Thank you so much for joining. See you soon.